Hi guys, it's Adam and welcome to another video. So in today's video I'm just going to give you a very brief look at some of the prohibited and restricted items on eBay. Now this is not going to be a comprehensive guide because if I did that, trust me, this video would be an hour or 2 hours long. But what I am going to do is actually link this page in the description. So after the video you can go to this page and you can see down here all the eBay prohibited and restricted items policies, and you can go into these policies one by one and have a more in-depth read through. Now the great thing about resellers is that a lot of the things on this on these lists won't actually really apply to us. We probably won't ever sell them, but there are a few different things that we may sell, and I've just picked out a couple of them, as well as a couple of the things that maybe are a little bit more interesting as well. Obviously things like adult items policy, we may never sell adult items, we may never sell digitally delivered goods, we might never sell food, we might never sell gift cards, you know, all these, there's so many different things on this list that we may never sell, event tickets, things like that, but it's always good to be aware of these anyway, even if you don't think you'll sell them. You know, obviously travel policy, stolen property policy, you know, stocks and other securities, we're probably not going to be selling them. Slot machines, we might not be selling them, but again, that could be something we sell. So it's always good just to have a quick look through these. But the great thing is, you know, a lot of this stuff we're not going to be really touching anyway. Obviously down here at the bottom we've got used cosmetics. That might be something we're going to actually sell, so I've not got that tab open, so I'm just going to open that tab actually. And yeah, I mean, firearms and stuff we're going to look at, but you know, there isn't really that much. I mean, selling art, obviously there's certain people who sell art, so we're going to have a quick look at that, and we're going to have obviously a quick look at used clothing. But a lot of these things, as you can see, we're probably not going to come into contact with. So, yeah, I just thought I'd do a very quick video on this. So, used cosmetics policy first off. So, which cosmetic items can I list on eBay? You can list new cosmetics, brushes, and applicators. You can also list some other used or open items, but there are restrictions on how you list them, guidelines, information you need to provide in your listings. What can I sell? You can't list used cosmetics, used makeup sponges, or used applicators on eBay. So that's quite interesting there for people who are thinking of selling used cosmetics. So if you expand this little thing here to read our full policy, give you a little sort of breakdown here, and then you can see actually quite easily, quite clearly, what is simply allowed, what is restricted, so you may be able to list this, but there's certain restrictions on listing it, and then what is outright not allowed. So as you can see there, not allowed is used cosmetics, used makeup sponges or applicators like we talked about, cosmetics, colognes, perfumes, lotions which do not come in the original container. And then you can see here what's restricted is like sample cosmetics, opened but unused cosmetics, lotions, perfumes and body washes as long as they don't have an applicator that comes into contact with the body, homemade cosmetics, etc, etc. So you can look at these and you can gauge a little bit of information about the product that you've got. Maybe you're worried whether you're going to list it or not. You can judge using that product, using these guidelines, whether you want to list that or not, whether it's something that is allowed to be listed. And if you have any doubt in your mind whether you should list it or not, please, please, please either get a second or even a third opinion from maybe a more experienced reseller in maybe that specific field, or just please don't list it. The 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 quid, no matter how big the amount is, it's, to be honest, in my opinion, it's just not worth getting a ban. It's not worth getting a restriction. So be very careful when you are listing this stuff. Also, just to state before we actually go any further, you may, if you break any of these policies, you may get a ban, or the listing may just get removed. You may get a temporary restriction as well as a ban or something like that. So just be aware of that, obviously. Make sure that you are adhering to these guidelines. So, animals and wildlife products policy, I just thought this might be an interesting one to look at. So, can you sell pets on eBay? No. You know, can I buy a pet on eBay? You can't buy a pet on eBay. You can't sell live animals on eBay or anything like that. which is, you know, most of us will be aware of that, and most resellers aren't going to sell pets. Can I sell ivory on eBay? No, eBay prohibits the sale of ivory. And then, as you say, you can expand the policy again, and you can look for the guidelines for all these different topics. So, what is not allowed? So, animals that aren't listed above, such as endangered species, so you can't list anything like that. I can't say that word. Is it noxious? Noxious insects, I think. I think it's where, insects that have like poisonous insects and stuff. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but it says here in restricted, crickets, worms or other herbivorous insects as long as they are intended to be used for bait or food for pets. So I'm assuming, going off this, that what's restricted but not necessarily banned is you may be able to list crickets and things like that if they are dead and they are for use in bait. And then obviously you can see more and more there. But that's just one that I wanted to highlight, just because I thought it was quite interesting to read the animals and wildlife policy. Not necessarily that it's going to affect us massively. Now this is the obvious one that most people will be aware of. Firearms, weapons and knives policy. So obviously I've got caught out on this one before, even though it's probably the most obvious one, which really does annoy me because my ignorance got the better of me. But as you can see here, I'm going to focus in on the knives a little bit more first, because obviously that was the one I got caught out on. So yes, most knives can be sold on eBay. However, some styles of knives are prohibited. Read our guidelines below for details. So you cannot sell carving cutlery on eBay, and don't even touch swords and anything like that. Don't even touch it. Generally, what I would say as a golden rule from someone who has experience with this and reading this policy and stuff, I would say, just if you're listing any knives or anything, just list dining cutlery. So that is butter knives and, you know, just forks, you know, the blunt knives and forks that you use to eat your meals with. I would even be careful with things like cheese knives, because I've heard a few people get caught out with that as well. But certainly not carving cutlery. I would literally just stay away from everything, just the dining cutlery, I'd say. You can obviously expand this down here, and you can look at the guidelines. So if we go to knives, I'm going to go to what's not allowed. You can see there's tons not allowed. Gravity knives, I don't even know what that is. Butterfly knives, bale song knives, automatic knives, paratrooper knives. You know, very, you know, knives that you would imagine are going to be restricted. You can see like parts for switchblades are allowed in some situations, as long as they cannot be used to make a complete switchblade, etc, etc. So again, when you look at this restricted section, or this allowed in some situations section, I would be very careful on this as well for all the different categories I'm going to be discussing, and I would do a little bit more research. Like, you know, I mentioned a minute ago about the restrictions here, restricted the crickets and stuff. I'd be very careful. I'd do a bit more research into this yourself on each of these things, because, you know, as I say, it's allowed in some situations, so just be careful with this stuff. You know, any of this allowed stuff should be okay, but it does make me think, if throwing knives is allowed, but then something else down here isn't allowed, surely a throwing knife is just as dangerous as one of the knives down here. But anyway, I don't know, so just be very careful with knives, be very, very careful. But anyway, so firearms, so BB guns, pellet guns, not allowed. You cannot list air rifles, air pistols, pellet guns or pop guns that are greater than .25 caliber. Allowed in some situations. You can list air rifles, air pistols, pellet guns. Again, be very careful with that. You know, it might take a little bit more research. Again, firearms and stuff like that, you know, you can just go into these very, very easy. And you see firearms, regardless of their ability to fire, how old they are, or their status as collectibles, including flintlock or muzzle-loader guns. So, but you may, if you go to a higher-end auction house, you may see the old decommissioned guns and stuff like that. you wouldn't be able to sell them because it says firearms regardless of their ability to fire, how old they are, etc. So just no for firearms or anything like that. Again, quite an obvious one, so most people will be aware of this, but it's always good just to point out that policy and keep it fresh in everyone's mind. So stamps, currency and coins, this is just a very quick one. So obviously if you sell coins or you would like to sell coins, you know, most coins are fine, you should be alright to sell them. However, it just says here, can I list counterfeit money on eBay? No counterfeit currency stamps or and the equipment designed to make them cannot be listed on eBay for obvious reasons. But you might be thinking, well, I'm not too clued up with currency. I'm not too clued up with coins and banknotes and things like that. How do I know if it's counterfeit? Well, in that situation, you're going to obviously have to get some sort of professional. Maybe you go to an auction house or something like that, and you get their opinion before you even attempt to list it. And then if they say, yeah, it's okay, or maybe you've got a friend who knows a bit more about that than yourself, you can obviously get their advice and then make a decision based off that. But yeah, so can I sell replica coins? No, you can't sell replica coins again. So again, you can just click this read our full policy and it will give you for all the different things, you know, bullion, stamps, virtual currency, crypto and stuff. Oh, I wonder if you can sell crypto. Like, oh, what? This is awesome. These requirements apply regardless of whether the virtual currency is digital or physically delivered. Examples of this subject include bitcoins, litecoins. I love it when we add the S on. That is so crap. Anyway, you just know that this has been written by someone who doesn't even have any Bitcoin or Litecoin. Anyway, so that's beside the point. I'm not going to go into that. I'll ramble all day. But yeah, so basically, you know, no replica coins, no counterfeit coins, all that sort of stuff. So used clothing policy. This is going to be one that is interesting for people. So as you can see here, I mean, I'm assuming there's a few people watching this who sell used clothing, so they may be more well versed in this, you know, this sort of niche and with these restrictions and stuff than I am. But I'm just going to read out a few of the different things. So, what kind of used clothing can I sell? So, aside from underwear, socks, and some athletic garments, you can list any clean, stain-free clothing. Now, I will point out that eBay is seeming to really focus in these guidelines when I read through them very briefly before, basically about the clean aspect, and I'll talk to you a bit about that in a second. What do I need to keep in mind when selling used clothes? Make sure you clearly state in your listing the item is used. Also avoid any adult content in the listing, so I'm assuming that any, you know, I know some people will maybe dress up in the clothing themselves and take photos. I'm assuming, and again, it does say it further down here, I believe. Yeah, eBay strictly prohibits the sale of used clothing listed with inappropriate images or content. So obviously, I think that's referring to maybe photos of someone wearing a garment, you know, wearing a dress or something, and it's a little bit sexually suggestive or something like that. So please be careful if you're modeling your stuff. I mean, you're not idiots. You're not gonna do that anyway. I know the people who watch me are very intelligent people. So yeah, you know, I'm just preaching to the choir here, but you know, just be careful with that. And you do see it on eBay. Certain listings are a little bit out there with how they're modeling their clothing and stuff. But yeah, anyway, so what else is there in here? So here we go. So oh yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about, not down there yet. So where is it? There we go. Used clothing except underwear and socks can be listed on eBay with restrictions. The item must be properly cleaned, and the listing must clearly state that the item is used. So again, it's stating that, you know, eBay would really like these items to be clean, to be cleaned in really, really good condition. So, you know, if you're listing clothing, obviously certain people will be better than me in this kind of niche, as I mentioned. But if you're listing it, please be careful, you know, making sure it's clean clothing, it's stain free, all that sort of stuff. You can see here most used clothing, shirts, pants and dresses, as long as it has been cleaned. Again, they're really focusing on that, as long as it's been cleaned. The seller states that the item is in used condition and there is no inappropriate content in the listing, etc, etc. Not allowed athletic supporters, briefs, boxer shorts, children's sized underwear, G-strings, jock straps, thongs, panties, socks, etc. So again, you can come into this you can come into this sort of policy and read it through a bit more for yourself. But yeah, as I say, I mean, here it says again, health and hygiene is also one of our top priorities. So our policy outlines why certain items cannot be sold. So again, it seems to be very focused on this hygiene and health when you are listing, you know, used clothing. So then finally, I just wanted to touch on selling art. So some of you that are watching may sell art, and those of you who are watching who do sell art probably won't really be bothered about this anyway and can avoid this very, very easily because you know what you're doing. However, if someone is just trying to get into art, the one thing that I wanted to state is, and again, you can just expand this down here to read the full policy, is obviously here, am I allowed to sell my own artwork on eBay? You can sell your original artwork, so if you've created art yourself, you can sell that. Other artwork that you've authorized to resell on eBay. Now, the thing that I wanted to point out is further down here. So if we go into the restricted section, you may only sell a reproduction in the form of a poster, print, or exact replica painting if it does not violate any laws, copyrights, or trademarks. So you've got to make sure that that's okay, but it doesn't, you know, violate anything like copyright, trademarks, or anything like that. But also, the other thing is, when listing an exact replica painting, the words reproduction or repo must be included in the title. The item description must clearly state that the work is a reproduction. So, if you're unsure if a painting or anything like that, or a print or something, well, print would be a reproduction anyway, but like, you know, anything like that is a reproduction or not, you're unsure, then maybe get someone else's advice before you start listing it, and then you can list it as either a reproduction or obviously an original piece of art. Now, obviously, if you don't include the word reproduction, the bot might not find you. You know, if the bot's going around, it might not pick your listing up. Or if that doesn't happen, you know, might not get the bot might not find you or anything, but someone may report your listing if you don't have that word in it. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Are there people really that sad who go around eBay reporting listings just for the thrill of it, I suppose, or just because something is slightly off on someone's listing? And I will tell you, yes, there are people like that. I've not had personal experience of that, although I know numerous people who have had that, where someone's reported their listing just for a very simple mistake they've made on the listing, and then they get either a restriction, a ban, or, you know, something like that. There's loads of different things that can happen. So be very careful when you're kind of listing things, to get things right in the listing beforehand, so then none of these people can really report you and do much harm to you. Obviously they can report you, but it's not going to do much harm to you because you've got good grounds to fight that. Or, you know, the bot isn't going to pick you up and remove the listing. So, again, not allowed knowingly selling, exhibiting, trading, producing, or advertising any unauthorized copy or reproduction of any work of art, etc., etc. I won't go into that in too much detail, but we'll go back to the main page here. So as I say, I'm going to link this page down below, prohibited and restricted items, and you can go through and just obviously expand out into a new tab and look at the relevant sort of categories for you. I would also advise just having a brief look at all of them if you've got a little bit of time available, because you never know what you're going to pick up. And you never know, you never know when you might be a little bit ignorant to something that you picked up, and then you end up listing it, and it's one of those unique items that have just fallen into one of these restricted items or not allowed items, into one of those categories, and then you kick yourself because you think, oh, why did I list that? Why didn't I look? Why didn't I understand the policy a little bit more, in a bit more detail? But as I say, just go through it at your own pace. Don't feel the pressure to go through it all really, really quickly. But I tell you what, if you do go through all the different things and you really do have a quick look at each one, you're going to equip yourself with so much good knowledge, and you're going to be able to avoid problems in the future. So, as I mentioned, just go through them at your own leisure, but certainly get clued up on these because it's really going to help you out in future. And with that being said, I'll leave this video here. It has been a little bit longer than I wanted. I was hoping that we could get this under about the 10-minute mark. I think I'm quite over that now, but at least I've gone into the detail that I wanted to go into. And as I mentioned, please do feel free to go to this page. The link will be in the description. As always, please do feel free to subscribe and like the video if you did like it and if you got some useful information out of it. If you'd like any packaging materials or anything like that for your business, for your reselling business, please do feel free to go down and use the links down below. And I will see you in the next video, guys. So I will see you very soon.